The Rocket Review is sponsored by Why Not Saloon.
We're so pleased to have on the show a country music singer, songwriter, guitarist that you need to be checking out his new music. Matt Oakley, thanks for coming on, Matt.
Happy to be here.
You know what? It's like I was listening to all your songs on Spotify and everything, and you have, we're not going to talk about all of the hundreds of songs you've already written that haven't been produced yet, but obviously, you've got a lot of singles out there that have gained some ground.
Yeah.
With Soldier's Son, Can't Take the Dogs, Party on 95. And then also you got a new song coming out in January.
I do, yeah. The new song is called Fire and Water. I would call it a fan favorite, but it's not out. It's just the people who've written on it and have heard it is one of those ones that everyone's like, when's that out? When's that out? It's totally different than anything I've done, so I'm excited to get that one out there.
You are like on fire. You've only been here since like summer, but you've been coming to Nashville for years and writing.
Yeah. So I want to say I don't even know how many trips I made before actually moving here, but like I said, and I've put out in the world, it's been a long journey, but it feels short in a way too. Right. So it's like it built on itself, just coming to town and writing, and then it just made more sense to live here. So after a while, after writing and going in with the band, we have this project that we're super proud of, and so now we're here getting ready to put it all out and doing the single thing. So
yeah, and you've got the new album coming out in the spring, probably in April, right?
Yep, I think it's don't want to put a hard date, but I think it's first week or two of April. So
what's the name of it?
Outside Looking In, that's the title track. So Outside Looking In, it's one of those ones that's a very looking back on my life and how we got here.
Right.
And so the whole album is just stories of my life and very true to me. And so it's one of those that I can listen to and not just like the melody or the instruments. It's like, oh, this is me and this is my story.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to give it to
Well,
everyone.
and you've been working with some top songwriters here in Nashville that kind of encouraged you to move to town from Virginia too, like Daniel Ray Stevens. David.
Yeah.
And then also Phil.
Yeah.
Phil
so
Mosley.
They're great guys. When I came to town the first time to write with them, it was to get one definite song done, hopefully two. And in 2 days, we wrote 4. And,
wow.
And we were like, these are all great. And one of those was Outside Looking In. And then it just felt like one of those things that's like, why we have all this momentum, why stop? And so I came back a month later and wrote another batch. And I came back a month later and wrote another batch and came back in the spring. And then we turned around after a year and we had this project. And so I moved to town with it, fully mixed and mastered. And have just been writing since and putting out singles and doing the whole run on it.
And you and I were talking before we came in studio too, Matt, to where you really write from your life experiences. They're really story songs when we're talking about Don't Take the Dogs and all this stuff. To where it's like and you and I were talking about divorce and all this stuff. To where and I want you to tell the backstory about this. To where I think it's so interesting, especially when you listen to the song.
Yeah. So Can't Take the Dogs is a song about my parents. The biggest thing in their divorce was our dog. His name was Jack. He was an Australian Shepherd. One of the best dogs we ever had.
Right.
And when they split up, they were like, okay, kids, you got to pick who you go with. We're not going to make it hard on you. But I think that was just their way to brush it aside so they could talk about the important stuff, which was the dog. And so that was a huge fight that went down. And I remember when I was in the courtroom, and we were talking about, okay, we had to say who we wanted to live with and all that blase stuff
so
that
hard.
you gloss over. But and then I remember the dog coming up, who gets it, who's on the paperwork, the AKC paper, all that stuff. It and then fast forward 15 years, I was down with my guitar and I was like, I feel like that'd be a good song idea. So I wrote it and turned around and showed some people, and they were like, "That's great." And
Can't Take the Dogs too. I got to tell you, to where when I'm listening to the song and knowing the background of the story, and I appreciate you sharing it, but it kind of reminds me of like a George Strait story.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's like it's just so honest, and I think a lot of us that have lived life, and certainly you and your sisters as well, and your parents, it's like one of those things. It's like the things that get battled over are usually not the things that matter most.
Yeah. Well, I think in a way they are too, though. I think dogs, especially to me and growing up, I can't, from the time I got my first dog when I was 5 years old to now, I don't have one in my apartment since I moved here, but we never didn't have dogs around.
Me either.
So they're such a important part of the family unit. And so it was ironic in a way that once that kind of split, that was the thing that everyone was like, well, what do we do with this? And so actually, when I wrote it, I sat on it for like 8-9 months, and I was like, this one's a little personal. Maybe I just sit on this one, and I don't know if it'll be that as well received. And I was talking to one of my friends from college, and she was like, yeah, me and my boyfriend just broke up, but we were arguing about the dog. And so one night in the middle of the night, I just packed up in the truck and drove 12 hours home with the dog. And I was like, I need to cut this song. I've got to go to town to cut this song. So the next time I was in Nashville, I played it for the guys, and then we got in with the band, wrote it, and when it was done, it was like, oh, this could
so
be
powerful.
Cool. Yeah,
it's just a great song. I wanted to bring up too, to where some of the viewers may not know, military kid.
Yep.
And so you and your family, traveled all over the country and the world. And I was going to bring up, you got some of your music taste and flavor from your dad DJing, which he DJ'd before you kids were born.
Yep.
But then he was also DJing in Germany.
Yeah, so he's always been a big music lover, and it's cool to have him like a part of the process now and run stuff by him and just see what he likes in his ear. It's obviously he's old, he's in his 60s, so it's like it's dated in a way, but also I think the older music has an authentic feel to it. So with him being a DJ and growing up, we always had music on in the house.
Yeah.
I can't remember a day that we didn't have some form of music playing. And then when the Sonos house systems became a thing, we immediately got one of those. And it was like, it was never quiet. We were
and you were talking about
singing.
Also about the mix CDs and everything you would make for the shows.
Yeah.
And so then you and your sisters would have these to sing along to.
Yeah, he would burn these CDs, and he had this huge black envelope and just filled with like maybe 100 CDs with different titles on them. And whether we were in the car or on our little boom box or wherever it was, we always had access to it. And so it was all different stuff too. So it was like we were exposed to so much so young and growing up that I think now when I sit down to write music and I know I have a kind of direction where I want to go, I think because of growing up around so many different styles, I know kind of where I want to take it pretty early on. So I attribute a lot of my music, I guess ear you could call it if you want, to that.
And your influences.
Yeah.
That range from, great country artists, but also Ed Sheeran.
Yeah, I love Ed Sheeran. I think he's an unbelievable songwriter, storyteller too. I remember I think it was one of everyone's first songs they heard of him. I mean, the A-Team, it was like, I was young, but I was like, there's something crazy about this.
Totally.
And so from there, I realized that like music is supposed to take you somewhere, make you feel something, and I think the best way to do that is tell a story. And who better to tell, the stories that I think are powerful for my life than myself. And so that's kind of how I got into the artist thing and writing my songs, and they've just taken a life of their own. So I'm very grateful for it.
And I think it's so interesting too, Matt, to where during the COVID, the pandemic and all this stuff, to where you've been playing some piano, but then all of a sudden you're locked in and you write 100 songs. And then you start putting stuff out on social media and it starts catching fire. Yeah. And you and I were talking before we came in studio, and then it's like going, well, wait a minute. I'm getting some people listening and checking this out. I have to take all this down and put new stuff out.
Yeah, exactly what it was. And so I think that number, everyone's always like, oh, 100, you wrote 100 songs. They're not 100 good songs. It's just 100 songs.
But still, 100 songs are 100 songs.
To tie something in we just talked about, Ed Sheeran says the best way to write a good song is to get all the bad ones out of your system. And so it's like the more bad ones I wrote and then would stumble across a good one, I'm like, okay, that's just part of the process. You can't write 3 bad songs and then 1 great one and say you're a bad songwriter. So it's like, it just comes with the territory of like, there's going to be ones that don't stick, and there's going to be times where you can't really get the story across the way you want, or the flip is off. Just sit down again and write a different one. Vibe it out, and then you'll just get the ones that stick, and in your head you're like, okay, this is worth taking somewhere.
Well, I think that's what you've done a great job of also, Matt, is the songs that you've put out so far, which you've been doing like a song every 6 weeks, which is incredible, but it's like they seem true to you.
Yeah.
And it's like they feel and sound authentic. Yeah. And that's not easy for people.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like you were talking about, with the dogs and everything, it's hard for you to put out that much honesty.
Yeah.
I mean, those are your moments. Those are your memories.
Yeah. And I think, so it wasn't always easy. I'd say when I first started out, it was a lot of, I wonder what people would like to hear, or what style of music, and maybe this like pop country, maybe this like country hip hop lane, maybe just true old school country. I was guessing. And then it took me taking a step back and saying, I don't want to, if I'm going to do this, I want to do it just true to myself. Like I've talked about a few times, it's just, I'm a military kid that moved around, and lived on this 10-acre. I ran a landscaping company out of my barn and played football, and just a good old story about, you know, my life, and I can turn the things that happen along the way of it into songs. And so once I made that switch to just being real and just me, you can see how much it's benefited versus trying to guess and see, oh, maybe some audience would like this, or maybe they wouldn't. You can't write like that. You'll get in your own way.
You can't. And also, I don't think it's authentic.
No.
You know, and also I got to bring up too, you know, man after my own heart, you recently have a new guitar acquisition that will be going on the studio and on the road with you.
Yes, sir.
A nice little Taylor guitar.
Yes, sir. I got it about a week ago, and I love it. I play that thing to my fingers bleed. I mean, you get callous. And
so you're breaking it in right.
Yeah. I'm playing it pretty hard. But yeah, it's a unbelievable guitar. It's a Taylor C14CE Indian rosewood. It's that like cherry tobacco color.
I played one.
It's just, and it sounds unbelievable.
Totally.
So it's one of those things where when you buy it, you're like, all right, I'm going in, and then you get it and you're like, oh, thank God I did that.
But also, you know, I mean, I think when we were talking about your past guitars and your first guitar and everything with the Washburn and then the Martin and the stuff, but it's like, I don't know, you know, like songs, it's like when you find the right guitar and it's right for you and you can write songs on it and perform with it, it becomes like a part of you.
It's hard to explain to people. It's like it's so hard to explain, and I didn't get it until I started playing. You're sitting there holding it, and it doesn't feel like you're holding a guitar. You're playing it and you're singing while you're playing it. It just feels like something. You feel like one thing putting out this sound that people like. And so I think feeling not in like a weird way, but like connected to your guitar as like a body part almost. And like your brain is making these things happen. And I think you make better music and you sound more authentic to you when you have one that you love. And I think the first time I played that guitar, I was like, this is the one I'm gonna get. I played like 25 from the Gibsons to the Martins to the Taylors and the different models. I played like 25 before deciding which one I wanted. And then I was like, I had him take this last one off the shelf, and I was like, oh, all right.
You know, there's nothing I enjoy more though, Matt, and if you want to go sometime and do it again, it's just going to all the music stores in Nashville and playing all the favorite guitars I want to try out.
Well, I would, but then I'd be broke.
But then if you play them across from people, then you trade them off.
Yeah, true.
And can hear how each one sounds. So it's like, I've got a guitar addiction too.
Yeah.
And it's okay.
Of course.
You know,
everyone's got their thing.
But you perform with them. You can justify it.
Exactly. The goal is that it pays for itself in a short period of time.
Yeah.
So.
And it will. And you know what? And once the singles and the album and everything are doing well, more festivals, you get more guitars.
Yeah.
It's a great deal.
Yeah, for sure. I know you're a gearhead. I'm a gearhead as well. I've got a little studio set up at my place.
Oh, that's awesome.
There's something about, if you're gonna, in my mind, if you're gonna do it, just do it.
Totally.
Like, go in and make the best thing you can make. Because 50 years down the road, are you really gonna care that you cut corners and maybe whether it's saved a little bit of money or saved some time, or are you gonna sit there and entrenched in your art and say, I made the best thing that I could make, and I supplied myself with the resources to do it. And I feel like that's part of the reason I'm in town and around it. You got the people in town will challenge you to be better too. You go down and sit in the right, and everyone's got a guitar, and they're coming up with melodies and lyrics and stories and playing riffs, and you're like, that's where I need to be. That's where I need to go. And so coming here and just diving fully in has allowed the music to grow, but it's also allowed me to grow in a way too. Like, I've grown through it a lot.
It ups your level. I think the as you know, from coming here a lot to Nashville over the years, but also once you move here, the well of creativity here in town, you know, it makes you a better musician or you leave.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, you know, it's not any in-between stuff, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And obviously with you, it keeps honing you in your craft. And I got to brag on you too. It's not bad when CMT and Spotify and things like that are giving you a nod with your songs.
Well, that's one of the biggest motivators, is when people whose sole job is to say this music's good or this music's bad are saying your music's good.
Right.
That's like, okay.
Well, I think
now I'm
going to
make it better.
Right. But also you do it so much from your heart, just like Soldier's Son, you know, and that image, you know, on the front cover of that single too. And you've done music videos for all of your, you know, all of the songs that you've done except for your latest one, Party on 95.
Yeah, so Party on 95 is a great song. And actually, if you're going to look back at all of the songs to make a music video to, obviously Can't Take the Dogs is a great one.
Right.
But this one feels like a music video song, and it just didn't work out timing-wise. But I think maybe with the album, the goal would be to get one done for it, because it just feels like one of those music video songs.
I agree.
And,
it does to me too.
I got one of the best videographers, Mike Hammer. He's one of the most talented guys, one of the most genuine guys, and he was he had some schedule conflicts, and it was on super short notice. So we're like, we'll circle back to this.
Right. In between all of the songwriting and the touring and booking the festivals for 2025, and album coming out, you got a lot of good stuff happening.
I'm super excited. Next year is going to be one of those where it's going to go like that, but it's going to be in the best way. There's going to be a lot of memories made next year, and I'm really looking forward to that.
I think so, and a lot of great music. I want to make sure for our viewers, Matt, for your website, for social media, for everything else that you're doing, the singles dropping. I know there's going to be some cool merch. You know, you got a lot of stuff going. Where do they need to go for everything?
Yeah, so the actually cool thing to put out there, our website's being renovated right now to be very album themed based on the album. So we're changing the URL a little bit. We're changing the entire front page of it. So that's under construction. But if you, in the meantime, and when that link ends up going live, you can find me on all my socials. It's just Matt Oakley Music, spelled how it sounds, like the glasses.
Yeah. They should endorse you.
I know. Hey, some camo glasses on stage wouldn't.
Come on, that's not. I'm just saying.
Yeah, put it out there.
Yeah. Along with Taylor guitars.
A quick little story. I know we're plugging something right now, but when I was little, my dad used to have me go into the Oakley stores as a little kid and be like, "My last name's Oakley. Can I have a discount?" And it never really worked. But we were always working a deal. But so yeah, it's Oakley, Matt Oakley Music on all socials, and then on Spotify, Apple, Amazon Music. It's just Matt Oakley.
I'll tell you what, be sure and check out Matt's songs. All of them are incredible, heartfelt. The music videos are amazing too. I can't wait to hear this entire new album and to come see you live in town here in Nashville.
Yes, sir.
And around the country.
Yes, sir.
Matt Oakley, thank you for coming on the show.
Happy to be here. Thank you. Appreciate it.
The Rocket Review is sponsored by Why Not Saloon.